A group of men sit in a dusty, stone-walled room in the coastal town of Yavne. The year is roughly 90 AD. Many of the sages want to throw it out. They want to ban it. You can hear the arguments echoing off the stone walls. She is left bruised and exposed in the street. This happens in chapter 3. And it escalates in chapter 5. It is a jarring, violent disruption in the middle of a beautiful poem. This is not a polite domestic romance. It is a desperate, agonizing hunt. She is battered. She is wandering. She is grabbing strangers by the arm, begging the daughters of Jerusalem to tell her lover that she is faint with desire. The search is exhausting. The pursuit costs her everything. Love in the Song of Songs is not a safe, comfortable emotion you control. It is a wild, untamable force that drives a woman into the terrifying streets of an ancient, walled city at midnight. She risks her reputation. She risks her physical safety. She risks her life because she cannot survive without him. When you read this scene, you are forced into a corner. For 2,000 years, scholars have fought over what to do with the bleeding woman in the street. The early church fathers read about the beatings, the dark streets, the frantic searching. And they said, this is the human soul searching for Christ through the dark night of suffering. The ancient Jewish sages read it. It is secular. It is scandalous. It is a tavern song masquerading as scripture. But then, one of the most respected voices in the room, and said, this is Israel pursuing Yahweh through the trauma of the Babylonian exile. Modern secular readers look at the exact same words and say, no. This is just a literal, flesh and blood woman risking everything for her physical lover. Stop overcomplicating it. For centuries, we have been told we have to pick a side. The text is either a spiritual allegory about God, or it is a literal poem about human sex. But what if that choice is a trap? We demand that the text choose a lane. We want it to be a sterile theology textbook, or we want it to be a secular romance novel. But the ancient Hebrew mind did not operate with our sharp Greek scissors. They did not cut the universe in half, separating the physical body from the spiritual reality. When a first-century Hebrew read about the smell of myrrh on the sheets, or the sharp sting of a watchman's rod on a woman's back, they did not have to delete the physical reality to find the spiritual truth. The physical reality is the vocabulary of the spiritual truth. This book is not an allegory that happens to use human bodies as a convenient metaphor. It is a revelation that human bodies were designed to mirror the divine romance. Think about how you learn to understand the invisible God. A man named Rabbi Akiva stands up, and he makes a statement that will dictate how we read the Bible for the next 2,000 years. You do not learn the fierce, jealous, all-consuming love of Yahweh by reading a dictionary definition of the word love. You learn it by experiencing the closest earthly parallel. You learn it in the chest-crushing vulnerability of handing yourself over to another human being. You learn it in the frantic, desperate search, when the one you love is missing. When the prophet Hosea needed to understand God's heartbreak over a wandering nation, God did not hand him a scroll of systematic theology. God told him to go marry a woman who would sell her body to other men. He told Hosea to feel the visceral, gut-wrenching betrayal of a wife sleeping in someone else's bed. The physical trauma was the lesson. God did not look down from heaven. See two humans experiencing physical intimacy, and think, that will make a handy illustration for my covenant with Israel. It is the exact opposite. God designed the crushing gravity of human romance, the racing pulse, the dilated pupils, the terrifying vulnerability of standing entirely naked before another person, specifically so that we would have a category for how he loves us. The aching hunger to be known and touched by one specific person out of all the people on the earth is not a secular distraction. It is the physical echo of a cosmic reality. If you strip the literal, breathing romance out of the Song of Songs, you lobotomize the theology, he says. The entire universe is not as worthy as the day on which the Song of Songs was given to Israel. If you say, it is just about God and the church, So the physical details do not matter. You have completely missed the point of why God made human bodies in the first place. You cannot have the allegory without the sweat. You cannot have the spiritual truth without the bruised skin. The Jewish sages at Yavne did not keep the book because it was a safe metaphor. They kept it because it was a dangerous, accurate reflection of how God pursues his people. But to feel the full weight of how these two layers crash together, you have to look at how the poem reaches its climax. Because in the final chapter, the woman makes a demand, and the word she uses takes us straight back into the blood and smoke of the ancient temple. The chaotic search is over. The lovers are finally reunited. They are standing in the countryside, leaning against an apple tree. And in chapter 8, verse 6, the woman looks at the man and speaks the absolute climax of the entire 8-chapter poem. She says, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave." It is a beautiful, poetic demand, but the word she uses for seal unlocks a door. All the writings are holy, but the Song of Songs is the Holy of Holies. The real question of this book isn't. That leads straight back to the darkest room in the temple. The Hebrew word translated as seal is chotam. A chotam was a signet ring. It was a heavy piece of carved stone or metal used to stamp hot wax, marking a document with the king's absolute authority and personal identity, but this specific word, placed specifically over a beating heart, appears in one other critical location in the ancient Hebrew text. Open the scroll of Exodus. Chapter 28. God is giving Moses the architectural blueprints for the high priest's garments. He commands the craftsmen to make a breastpiece of judgment. They are to take 12 precious stones, sapphire, emerald, amethyst, topaz, set them in heavy gold filigree, and weave them into the heavy linen over the priest's chest. And God gives a very specific instruction for those stones. He says in verse 21, "There shall be 12 stones with their names according to the names of the sons of Israel. They shall be like the engravings of a chotam," a seal. And then God tells Moses exactly where this heavy, yeled chatam must be worn. Verse 29, "So Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel in the breastpiece of judgment on his heart, when he goes into the holy place, to bring them to regular remembrance before the Lord." That echo changes everything. Is it a love song or an allegory? It is this. What were those men seeing in the text that we have completely lost? When the woman in the Song of Songs looks at her lover and says, "Set me as a chotam upon your heart," she is not asking for a piece of jewelry. She is invoking the architecture of the priesthood. This is not a romantic cliché. It is a theological demand. She is asking him to carry her name the way the high priest carries the 12 tribes into the terrifying presence of Yahweh. She wants her identity carved into his very chest. She wants to rest directly over the rhythm of his blood. She wants to be the heavy, precious weight he carries into the dark. The physical embrace of a man and a woman is elevated to the exact same sacred geometry as the high priest mediating for the nation of Israel. The human heart in love becomes the sanctuary. The human body becomes the holy ground. But if the ancient text holds human desire in this level of staggering reverence, what happened? Why did we spend the next 2 millennia trying to scrub the sweat off the pages? We traded the heavy gold and the crushed myrrh for fluorescent lights and dry paper. Look at the architecture of modern religion. We sit in stiff wooden pews, facing forward, staring at a man behind a wooden podium who explains abstract concepts. We build massive, multi-volume systematic theologies. Most people assume the ancient sages only kept the book because they found a way to sanitize it. We are told they made it safe. We argue over eschatology, the study of the end times, and we debate justification, carefully organizing our beliefs into neat, intellectual boxes. We are obsessed with the courtroom. We want God to be a judge, because a judge is predictable. You can measure your standing with a judge. If you keep the rules, you avoid the gavel. We want salvation to be a legal transaction, a contract signed in a sterile room that guarantees our safety after we die. But a contract does not require you to take off your clothes. A legal transaction does not require you to stand completely exposed in the dark, offering the softest, most vulnerable parts of your chest to someone who has the absolute power to crush you. Intimacy is terrifying. That is exactly why we spiritualize the sweat out of the Song of Songs. We did not turn the book into an allegory because we were trying to be holy. We turned it into an allegory because we were trying to hide. If the physical, desperate pursuit in those 8 chapters is actually the most accurate earthly picture of how God feels about humanity, it destroys our safe, manageable religion. We can manage a lawgiver. We can negotiate with a distant, cosmic CEO who demands a tithe and a Sunday morning attendance sheet. We cannot manage a lover who wanders the freezing stone streets at midnight looking for us. We assume they looked at a provocative love poem and scrubbed it clean, deciding it was just an abstract allegory about God and Israel. The Bible is not a catalog of divine behavior management. It is the diary of a lover hunting down a bride. When the ancient Jewish sages placed the Song of Songs in the canon, they were planting a bomb in the middle of our theology. They were forcing us to realize that the creator of the universe does not just want our polite obedience. He wants our desire. He wants the unguarded, unashamed, fiercely loyal devotion of a woman pulling her lover by the arm into the banquet hall. And when you step back and look at the entire narrative arc of the scriptures, you realize this scandalous romance was exactly where the story was always headed. A man is formed from red clay in a garden, and the physical body is declared holy. A high priest walks into the darkest room of the temple and finds 2 angels intertwined in an intimate embrace. A poet writes about the scent of myrrh and crushed apples, and the sages declare it the Holy of Holies. A woman wanders freezing limestone streets at midnight, and the search costs her everything. The city guards beat her and strip away her woven cloak, and she refuses to stop looking for the one she loves. A priest carries 12 carved stones over his chest, and a fractured nation, and century after century, modern readers do the exact same thing. We take the physical sweat, the racing hearts, and the heavy breathing is brought before God. A lover demands to be placed as a seal over a beating heart, and human romance matches the sacred architecture of the sanctuary. One thread, one story. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the violent streets of chapter 5. The torn cloak, the sharp sting of the wood striking bone. This is not a polite, comfortable faith. It is a desperate, agonizing pursuit that risks absolutely everything because it refuses to settle for absence. If you are in a season where God feels like a distant judge, where your religion feels like a sterile legal contract you are constantly failing to uphold, the Song of Songs is a place to sit. You do not have to hide your humanity. You do not have to scrub your desires clean before you approach the holy ground. The creator of the universe is not asking for your theological perfection. He is asking for your naked trust. If this shattered a misconception for you, hit subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who grew up believing their physical body was a distraction from God. And please, pray for us as we keep digging into these ancient texts. And may the God who pursued humanity into the darkest streets of exile set you as a seal upon his heart and love you with a jealousy unyielding as the grave. And we turn it into a neat, polite theology lesson about Jesus and the church. But if you look closer at the Hebrew vocabulary, Jerusalem is a ruin. The Roman legions have burned the city to bedrock, and the smell of charred cedar and shattered limestone, anchored in the text. At the geography of the ancient temple, at the way the physical world was originally designed to function, you start to see something the purely allegorical reading completely misses. The Song of Songs is not a theological metaphor designed to make human desire safe. It is a violent collision of heaven and earth. To understand why Rabbi Akiva called this the Holy of Holies, you cannot look away from the physical details. You have to look straight at the scandal on the page. Open any standard commentary on this book. Look at the footnotes. Read the sermons from the Victorian era. You will witness a frantic scramble. You will see a desperate, centuries-long attempt to explain the human body away. The text says her hair is a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. The scholars say this represents the nations descending on Jerusalem. The text says, his lips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. The theologians say this represents the sweet doctrines of the gospel. The text says her breasts are like two fawns grazing among the lilies. The early church fathers wrote that this represents the Old and New Testaments. They take the sweat. They take the locked doors. They take the taste of raisins, the crushed pomegranates, the sheets smelling of cedar and cinnamon. From the temple still lingers in the cultural memory of everyone in this room. They are holding the surviving pieces of their civilization, and they wash them out. They scrub them down with theological soap. Why do we do this? Because we are terrified of the physical world. We like our religion invisible. We like our theology neatly organized in the mind, completely detached from the dirt and the blood and the skin of human existence. For 2,000 years, Western culture has been infected by Greek philosophy. Thinkers like Plato taught that the spirit is good and the material world is a prison. The goal of religion, we were told, was to escape the body. We absorbed that framework. We swallowed it whole. We looked at human desire, at physical hunger, at the visceral reality of romantic love. And we decided it was inherently unholy. We decided God only cares about souls. So when we open a sacred scroll and find a woman begging her lover to kiss her, to take her into the banquet hall, to put his left hand under her head while his right hand embraces her, we panic. We spiritualize it. We turn it into an allegory because an allegory is safe. An allegory stays in the intellect. An allegory does not make the congregation blush, but the urge to sanitize the text is not a sign of reverence. It is a symptom of a fractured worldview. The allegory is not a lens to understand the book. It is a shield to protect us from it. Without a temple, without a priesthood, they are trying to figure out how their faith will survive. They are debating the exact boundaries. We assume the Jewish sages at Yavne only kept the book in the Bible because they allegorized it. We assume they made it a sterile metaphor about God and Israel so they would not have to deal with the sex. But the ancient Hebrews did not think like Greek philosophers. They did not slice the universe into two neat boxes labeled secular and sacred. They did not believe the invisible world was holy and the physical world was a mistake. To the Hebrew mind, physical intimacy is not a distraction from the divine. But to understand how they saw the body, you have to rewind the tape. You have to leave the coastal town of Yavne. You have to go back long before the temple in Jerusalem was ever built, long before the watchmen guarded the city walls. Back to the very first pages of the Hebrew text. A man lies on the ground, formed from red dirt. The soil is damp. You can smell the rich, dark earth. God leans down, breathes into the dust, and the chest cavity expands. The man opens his eyes. He feels the wet clay beneath his fingernails. He feels the cool mist rising from the four rivers. He reaches out and bites into a piece of fruit, the sweet juice running down his chin, of the Hebrew Bible. Which scrolls will be copied? Which texts will carry the voice of the divine to a people who are? This is the opening act of the Hebrew Bible. It is aggressively physical. There are no clouds, no floating harps, no disembodied spirits chanting in an ethereal void. There is dirt and water and skin and hunger. When God finishes building this tangible, breathing world, he steps back and calls it Tov Miod. Very good. This detail changes how you read the rest of the text. In the Greek mind, a human being possesses a soul, and that soul is unfortunately trapped inside a dirty, physical body. But the Hebrew text in Genesis does not say God placed a soul into the man. It says the man became a living soul, a nephesh. You do not have a soul. You are a soul. The physical world is not a distraction from the divine. It is the theater where the divine is meant to be encountered. When God wants to create the ultimate picture of unity, he does not create a theological concept. He creates a woman. He takes bone and flesh from the man's side, shaping a second human, and brings her to him. The man looks at her and bursts into the first poetry recorded in human history. Bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. The pinnacle of creation is not a solitary monk meditating on a mountain. The pinnacle of creation is a naked man and a naked woman, entirely unashamed, joined together in a garden. Eden was the blueprint, but then came the fracture, the rebellion, the thorns, the sweat, the hiding in the bushes, about to be scattered across the earth, and then someone unrolls a short, strange text. It contains no laws. It contains no covenant rituals. The fig leaves frantically sewn together to cover the bodies they were suddenly terrified to reveal. Human desire became twisted. The physical world was corrupted by selfish consumption, by taking instead of giving. The garden was lost. So when we read the Song of Songs, we are not just reading a secular romance that snuck into the canon. We are reading an echo of Eden. When the lovers in the song describe the scent of mandrakes, the taste of apples, the rushing streams of Lebanon, and the unashamed longing for each other's skin, they are pulling the reader back behind the flaming sword. They are describing a world where physical desire is uncorrupted, where the body is a holy thing, where a man and a woman look at each other without a trace of shame or exploitation. This is what Rabbi Akiva and the Jewish sages at Yavne understood. They were not trying to sanitize the poem to make it fit their theology. They recognized that this fiercely physical love story was actually a map, and the map pointed straight into the center of the Jewish universe. To see exactly where it leads, you have to look at the very first verse of the book. Open the scroll to the very first line. Chapter 1, verse 1. It reads, "The Song of Songs," which is Solomon's. The English translation is accurate, but it completely misses the weight of the grammar. The phrase in the original Hebrew is Shir HaShirim. The name of God does not appear a single time in its 8 chapters. Instead, it is a poem, a visceral, breathing, intoxicating poem. This is a unique grammatical construct in the Hebrew language. It is a superlative. When the ancient writers wanted to express the absolute highest degree of something, they multiplied the noun. The greatest king is the King of Kings. The highest heaven is the heaven of heavens. And the greatest song, the ultimate song ever sung in the history of the world, is the Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. But this exact grammatical structure appears somewhere else in the Jewish worldview. And it is the key that unlocks Rabbi Akiva's shocking statement at the Council of Yavne. Look at the geography of the ancient temple. You have the outer courtyards. You have the inner sanctuary. And then, hidden behind a massive, heavy veil, you have a windowless cube of absolute darkness where the Ark of the Covenant rests. The ultimate sacred space. In Hebrew, that room is the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, Shir HaShirim, and Kodesh HaKodashim. The grammatical echo is intentional. The sages were making a deliberate, breathtaking parallel. They were saying that this fiercely physical poem about 2 unwed lovers possesses the exact same sacred density as the innermost chamber of the temple itself. That parallel changes everything. The Holy of Holies was not a sterile, disembodied vacuum. It was the bridal chamber of the universe. If the idea of the Bible speaking this directly to the physical, breathing reality of human desire is stirring up questions you've never considered. About 2 unwed Middle Eastern lovers. They sneak through city streets at night. They sleep beneath cedar branches. They describe each other's bodies. You're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the high priest walks into the darkness. He carries the blood and the thick, sweet-smelling smoke of incense. He steps behind the heavy curtain. And what does he find in the very center of the Jewish religion? He does not find a scroll of rules. He finds a golden box. And on top of that box, he finds 2 cherubim, 2 angelic figures beaten from a single piece of solid gold. They are not facing the congregation. They are facing each other. Their wings are touching. Their faces are intimately close. The Talmud records that when the Israelites came to Jerusalem for the festivals, the priests would pull back the veil so the pilgrims could see the cherubim intertwined. And the priests would say, "Behold your beloved before God," like the love of male and female. The physical union of a man and a woman is not a distraction from the divine presence. It is the earthly mirror of it. The Song of Songs is not a secular poem accidentally left in the canon. It is the Holy of Holies, rendered in ink. But the journey into that kind of intimacy, lips dripping with myrrh, skin like polished ivory, the scent of mandrakes lingering in the spring air. It is dripping with physical, earthly desire, is never safe. And it is rarely simple, because outside the bridal chamber, the city streets are dark. She wakes up in the middle of the night. The bed is empty. The sheets are cold. The lingering scent of myrrh on the pillows is the only proof he was ever there. She gets up. She pulls a woven cloak over her shoulders. She pushes open the heavy wooden door and steps out into the streets of Jerusalem. The city is completely black. The limestone cobblestones are freezing against her bare feet. The wind cuts through the narrow alleys. She is looking for the one her soul loves. She checks the broad squares. She checks the market stalls. She asks the shadows. Nothing. Then the watchmen find her. The armed guards, who patrol the walls, they do not help her. They do not offer her a lantern or guide her home. They strike her. They beat her. They strip the cloak from her shoulders. You can hear the heavy fabric tear in the silence of the city. You can feel the sharp sting of the wood striking bone. You can see the dark bruises forming on her skin.